Hi friends, welcome to the channel. Welcome into another video. Hi if you're new, hi if you're not new. Today we're going to talk about minimalism, and more specifically, do I want to be a minimalist? Is that a goal that I would like to have for myself? And I think this is a very interesting question, especially given the kinds of topics we talk about on this channel. And also some of the videos I've made are very minimalist leaning or explicitly minimalist. And I do think that minimalism and the no buy, low buy kinds of communities or ideas, ideals, habits, they do go hand in hand. Or at the very least, they're like neighbors. You know, similar, and there's overlap. So we're gonna get into it. I don't have coffee today. I have water. I drink too much coffee, and sometimes I just drink coffee so I have something to warm me up when I don't actually need more caffeine. So we're just trying some hot water and lemon today, like a basic person. Love and life. Also, my window's open. It was in a previous video as well, and I was editing it back today, and I could hear the birds chirping. So you may hear my birds, not my birds, but the birds in my video. I think they'll come across. You know what I'm saying? Let's talk about it. So in answering the question, do I want to be a minimalist? Is this a goal I'd like to have for myself? The short answer is no. But this is not a situation where I feel like I should be, throwing the baby out with the bathwater, if you will, or that there is no redeeming qualities of minimalism, or there's nothing of value that I can take or implement into my own life. I think there are some core beliefs about minimalism that are really great, but I also think in practice they don't really work out, or even just the culture of minimalism, the people who talk about it, or the groups that exist about it. What I'm trying to say is that there's a culture about it. There's a culture associated with minimalism that just isn't the tenant itself. And when you're somebody who's maybe looking for inspiration or talk to other people about minimalism, the culture of minimalism matters a lot. I think if I were to describe the relationship I'd like to have with minimalism, I'm going to give a bit of an analogy. I hope you can follow my train of thought here. Now, Marie Kondo, she talks about or believes that we should just keep the things that make us happy, that, have the spark joy. That's her principle. Now, this is not inherently a minimalist principle in that Marie Kondo is not espousing minimalism or advocating for minimalism, and you can follow her course and not be a minimalist. You could have more things and have a lifestyle that is not technically minimalist, but you will have less over time. And what I think grounds her philosophy is advocating for intentionality over anything else. So be intentional and let's see where that leads us. Or, as we'll talk about later in the video, a contentment first philosophy over a minimalist or stuff first philosophy. So what do I like about minimalism? I think at its heart, minimalism does have some good ideas. Number one, that just in American society, and we'll say North American society, overconsumption is definitely rampant. And I know so many of us, myself included, just own so many things in our home that we just get that anxiety of looking at things. They take longer to clean. Your home takes longer to clean or to tidy. We're wasting money by buying more than we need, or we're not putting our money into ways that we might prefer. And so minimalism forces people to deal with their stuff and force people to reckon with their overconsumption. And we will never be fulfilled by stuff. We will never be happier with more things. We own so much stuff that we don't even realize we own, or we don't even know how we feel about it. So yeah, you're buying less, you're saving money, and you can put that money you're saving to things that you would prefer, whether that's travel or hobbies or savings, what have you. You're surrounded by less stuff, you have less mental clutter. It takes you actually less time to deal with your running of your house, your laundry and your dishes and your everyday cleaning and tidying. But also when we think about shopping, there's so much less time spent there too. The scrolling, the buying, the going to the mall, the buying online, the returning. If you've ever, let's say, decided you want to buy new stuff for a season and then bought stuff at multiple stores and try to pick the best of it and then return it all, that could be thousands of dollars worth of stuff, even if you're not going to keep it all. And then you have to have the returns process. You're buying at multiple places. That does take a long time to deal with. So you're overall spending less time cleaning and sorting and organizing. And it's just so much easier to deal with that stuff. And just it does save you time. So all of that is really great. I do like that, and I do like how it deals with the stuff problem. But minimalism, well, I think when it's trying to get to a being content with what you have, comes at it from a being content with what you have and, having your life be special and enjoyable, but it's coming from a stuff first philosophy. The reason why you're not content is you have too much stuff. So if you get rid of that stuff, then you'll be happier. So I'm saying like what my actual beef is with minimalism, but like I don't hate minimalism or anybody who finds it helpful. I just don't think it's for me. Minimalism is just as a whole too over-focused on stuff. And for people who've had shopping addictions or overconsumed, it can just be really easy to swing in the other direction, to become obsessed with having no stuff or as little stuff as possible. And so I think the culture of minimalism like hyper focuses on decluttering, where like there's minimalist channels and I think what people come to associate with minimalism the most is decluttering and this stuff aspect, not necessarily the philosophical or mind-changing types of things. And I think that there's this competition of like who can own less stuff, or just overall having the value of how little stuff can I own, which the focus is still on the stuff. If you're wondering how little stuff can I own, that's not the same as focusing on contentment as an example. It's still focusing on stuff. How little can I live with, and owning less things than the next person. I think there's also a little bit of a superiority mindset in the minimalist world, that I'm better than you because I'm woke. I am not a cog in the capitalist system. I know better, and I'm no longer part of it. I'm not part of the problem. And this is the same mindset I think that people hate vegans for, or maybe associate with vegans and veganism. And so I think that this kind of thing does exist in minimalism as well. Minimalism is just trying to get converts to the point where I think it can make other people feel really shitty about the way that they live their lives. And I can talk about that right next. But the superiority mindset, I actually find a little bit comical, because there's a philosophical text by a famous author. It's called The Spectacle, or it's about the spectacle by Guy Debord. If you're interested in thinking about, it's a critique on capitalism in America and consumption and things like that. And I'm going to I'm applying it in a way that maybe isn't totally, on 100% point. But in the spectacle, there is no being outside of the spectacle, just like there is no being outside of capitalism, especially if you live in America. You are not a special snowflake that is somehow outside of capitalism if you live in America. You are playing with the exact same rules, and just because you also don't consume in the same way also doesn't actually mean that you value different things. You are playing in a capitalist system. And if we want to change things, we need to overthrow capitalism. But that's not this video. Is YouTube going to flag me because I say overthrow capitalism? I read this book in a class about, it was supposed to be like the city and like the history of the city. Turned out it was a class all about philosophical texts about capitalism. And I fucking loved it. Okay, so you're playing within the same system, you exist in the same system, and you're not, in some kind of alternate reality. So the obsession with owning less is what I hate the most, and I don't personally think I can be a participant of minimalism without kind of getting swept up in this, because I have come, after reading minimalist books or just having this minimalist or attempting to have a minimalist mindset, I'll just have moments where I'll look around and feel like crap because I own too much stuff, because it's not minimalist. And there's always minimalists who are like, there's no set number, for minimalism, but I only own 2 pairs of shoes and 1 dinner plate per person. And I often, I found myself for the last few months feeling like garbage because I have 1 more jacket than I probably should, or 1 more pair of shoes than I should, or 1 more of this, or even 5 more of this, or making choices where it's not just I have the one thing. An example was recent skincare. I mentioned it in a video where skincare wasn't working out for me, and I just need to put on a back burner and use something else temporarily until I found something else, until I could go back to that thing. not really a minimalist kind of behavior. And I often, like specifically as well, when it comes to my wardrobe, I get anxiety in my wardrobe being like, is this minimalist? Should I declutter things? Like, it's not even do I need this? It's trying to get things down fewer and fewer. Like, I always have too much. And just like, you know how there's the maximalist mentality, there's never enough. It's like there's never not enough with minimalism. Like, you could always get rid of more stuff. And so I've already pared down my wardrobe, but in ways I still have more than, let's say, a 30-piece capsule or 33-piece capsule, just even in clothing. And it's like, okay, I should be getting rid of stuff. Like, what can I get rid of now? And that's part of the reason why I didn't put a capsule wardrobe together officially on the channel, is that there are certain tops. I mean, I could do it just for, here's an idea of what you might make for your capsule, like here's an inspiration video, but there are tops like that I should have decluttered because I only wear them a handful of times a year, but I really like them. Okay, they're not the most worn pieces, but truly I have decluttered a lot of things that I regret. Two examples that actually came up recently when I was talking to a friend. I got rid of 2 like formal dresses I wore in university. I got rid of for reasons that I just if I open that can of worms, you know me, I'm gonna be tangent on it. Whereas now what they remind me of is being bold and courageous with my dress choices when I've lost that. And that's that might sound simple or even like my style change, but let me tell you, there is a very deep psychological thing that creates like a before and after in my dressing. And this was part of the before, where I had the courage to wear whatever I wanted. Like, seeing that in my closet would be a memory or a reminder of having courage to be yourself through your clothes. And I think in some ways I have lost that, and I'm in the process of finding it, and I regret decluttering it. And I decluttered it because of a lot of the ways minimalists talk about their wardrobe. Will I ever wear this again? I will probably never wear that dress again. I have to throw a picture up on the screen for you. It's completely cut out at the sides and at the front. So I had to be taped in to the dress, and I wore these outrageously high heels, like maybe 5-6 inches. They were beautiful, and I sold them to a Plato's Closet, and I super regret it. I regret decluttering that whole outfit. It makes me so sad. And there's so much like that I decluttered because I would never use this again. It doesn't make sense to keep this, and I should have thought twice. And now the way that I declutter is always keeping stuff for probably a year, at least 6 months, so I can rethink about it later. And I'm usually never as gung-ho of decluttering it, not because I saw this thing again and I'm like, oh, I remember how much I love it, but because I was just bored and I needed a break from some of my clothes. That doesn't necessarily mean buying more. That just means putting a handful of things on the back burner for a little bit. So I hate constantly looking through my stuff and being like, can I get rid of more things? Or I should get rid of more stuff to be more minimalist, or to be a minimalist, because I don't think I'm a minimalist right now. And I don't like that feeling, and it makes me just anxious going about my day-to-day life, having to think of that way. And which I find that very interesting, or maybe interesting is not the right word. I find that very surprising, because I used to go around and feel anxious because I have too much stuff. And now, in some ways, yes, I still do have too much stuff, but also I go around and I'm wondering, oh, how much less stuff could I own? And it's making me equally as anxious, which makes no sense. Minimalists often say that when you are a minimalist, you make more space for the things that you love and the things that you enjoy, or that make you come alive, that make you happy. And I love that philosophy, but I also feel like I don't see many great examples of that in practice, because minimalists will say that, but I do think they often mean like non-physical things, like experiences, or spending money on vacation and trips, or spending time with people. I think that's great. I think that's fabulous. And I am somebody who in a lot of ways believes in that. My partner and I don't give each other gifts almost as a rule, and we prefer our money to be spent on things together that we probably we genuinely would prefer that than buying us each other's stuff. We don't buy each other stuff for our birthdays or Christmas or holidays. Like, we don't. And I have come to love that. Like, I've come to really love that because we get to eat out or have fancier dinners that we couldn't afford to do otherwise. So there is something to be said about that. But I also have hobbies of my own that are separate from my partner that I do like putting money into. And one, I often feel guilty as hell for buying hobby supplies because they're often like in large quantities, like buying a sticker set or buying a paint set, because they're high volume of goods opposed to, let's say, buying one paint or two paints. So an example is I bought a paint set recently and it's 14 colors. And I could have just went to the craft store and bought a couple of colors. But I bought this set because I don't really know what colors I like. I felt like I would want to paint and I wanted to try acrylic paintings, and I felt like it would be for me. This minimalist in the back of my mind is like, oh, Shauna, you shouldn't do that. That's not minimalist behavior because you don't know if you're going to use them all or finish them all. When all I really wanted, like if that part of my mind just shut up for a second, I wouldn't feel guilty about making a choice that felt like the best option. And I could try some things, but it's not just trying to try. It's trying something that I genuinely think I'm going to like, but I'm not fully sure what my preferences are yet because I don't paint. And I hate having to justify this stuff to myself. I should just be able to buy it, not buy impulsively, but think about the purchase, but not necessarily think about the quantity of stuff. This, I guess, is also where the push-pull is that I can very easily get into over consuming again. I think so many of us who are on no buy or low buy journeys or have finished one, it can very quickly get back into that place. Or there can even be pockets where we have but have been able to rein it in. Some of the tension that I do feel is that there are benefits of thinking through your purchase, but also thinking through how much stuff that you bring in. And the point that I was making about how minimalists say that they, have money to spend time on things, and I kind of got off track. The example I gave was that most minimalists, I believe, are referring to non-physical things, but they say that as an open-ended way of meaning anything. Yet, I have not seen many minimalists who talk about their hobbies or share hobby supplies as a minimalist. There very well are videos on YouTube about that, but it's like a specific person. And sure, that's an example of it. But when you talk about mainstream or just a minimalist or any minimalist on the internet, very few of them will talk about their hobbies. And if they do have hobbies, they're also limiting the kinds of things they buy for the hobbies, not because they're being intentional. Well, I mean, it's part of it, but because they're being minimalist about it. What's the point in making money and space for hobbies when you're also being minimalist about your hobbies? If I want to have a drawer set, I'm looking at mine, it's 3 drawers. If I want to have that for art supplies, I'm going to have that for art supplies. And it's not minimalist of me, no. But if I'm creating time and space for art supplies, why am I now getting into my head about how much art supplies should I own? How much of this? Is this too much? We can be intentional without also stripping the fun of stuff and being minimalist about literally every part of our lives. And so I find that minimalists tend to espouse this belief without actually having a collection of anything. What is enough to me should be fine with me, but then at the same time, when you see people who say I love makeup and I'm a minimalist and I have 30 pieces, it does make me feel like shit when the norm was, let's say, 30 pieces or 40 pieces and I have double or triple that. So what I guess I'm trying to say is even the collections of stuff that people have said that they're making time and space for are minimalist too. And reading Goodbye Things kind of put this into perspective for me, at least reading Goodbye Things by Fumio Sasaki after reading Marie Kondo's both of her books. I would rather own a little bit too much stuff across the board than be Fumio Sasaki, who has this dream of entertaining people in his apartment but won't because he doesn't want to buy a table. I would rather not be that person. The constant guilt of minimalism I really hate. The constant focus on numbers of minimalism just really bothers me, and it really does feel like people are saying one thing and doing another. It's like, it's really easy to say that it's not about the numbers when you already have tiny numbers. And also, just a small aside, the culture of minimalism, as I said earlier, really, I think, prioritizes decluttering, and that's one of the things that comes to top of mind or top of the culture when it comes to decluttering. And sure, when we have too much stuff, we have to declutter a lot of it or some of it. And I do think decluttering is a part of minimalism and something that I think a lot of us would probably benefit from, but not if we continued the cycle of consumption. And minimalism does not do a good job helping people or teaching people how to stop shopping and how to consume less. It feels like a lot of minimalists believe that you'll just wake up one day and realize you have too much stuff and that'll be enough to get you to stop shopping. That is not the reality of so many people, and also people who have previously had shopping addictions or currently have shopping addictions. There are so many people who would love to be a minimalist, and it might actually be great for them, but they struggle to stop consuming. And then they declutter, and they just repeat this cycle of declutter, purchase. And things never really stay low despite intentions. And so it really feels like the common treatment is once you declutter, you're there. Well, no, because how do you stop shopping? How do you stop impulse shopping? How do you stop emotional spending? How do you stop the behavior that led to the overconsumption in the first place? And a lot of minimalists, like when I watch closet declutter videos from minimalists, one of the things I hear time and time again is like how decluttering the thing changed their lives and how they have so much time for this and that and whatever. Great, fabulous. But for a lot of people out there, you declutter your closet, it does not bring you intentionality, it does not bring you this new philosophical awakening. You can forget that so quickly, and then you want to buy more stuff. Where is the information for those kinds of people? And that is where I think the no-buy community comes into play. I think this is something that minimalism could really learn from. The fact that minimalism doesn't really help people stop shopping feels a little gatekeepy to me. It's like, we'll tell you the location, but we will not tell you how to get here. So figure it out yourself. I don't know if that's too harsh or if that's just me, but that's just me. And I also believe when it comes to decluttering, that a lot of minimalists would say declutter this stuff so you can give it a new home, when there's a lot of things actually that if you just have the patience and the time, you could finish yourself. I'm talking about consumables, things that could be like makeup, tea, art supplies, all kinds of food related things, skincare and toiletries. There's a lot of that given time, and by time, I mean 1 to 3 years, depending on your collection of stuff, that you can finish it up. And sure, there are times where people's accumulation of stuff is so significant you could not get to that stuff in 5 or 10 years. Sure, but you don't need to go all the way where you just have that one thing left. You could go half of the way or, 3/4 of the way and use up that stuff. And that doesn't tend to be something that minimalists talk about or advocate for, when there's always two options: declutter or use it up. And I think there's some people who ultimately they want to buy the new thing, or they just want to see the results. So if they get to one, then they can buy the new thing faster, whether that's intentional thought or not. Or if you declutter all the way down, then you see instant results, opposed to the hard work of completing the thing. I do think that a lot of products out there are going to be difficult to rehome if they are not brand new and also new, like recently purchased. You're going to have a hard time giving them away. You're going to have a hard time selling them. You're going to have a hard time rehoming them. I mean, there's always exceptions to that. I think that there should be at least more advocating for using up what you have. Learning, having your decluttering process, have that be a part of it. If you want to be a minimalist, learn to use up what you have. And that is, I think, could be part of the process of helping people not buy more stuff. Well, you want to be minimalist? Okay, finish the skincare that you bought 3 years ago. How long will that take you to finish? And then maybe, that could be part of your minimalism and training. My desire for myself would be, if I had to make up a cute name for it, it'd be an intentionalist or a contentmentist, something like that, where stuff is always the secondary to internal peace or happiness. And I think minimalism just goes for this stuff first. So if contentment matters more than everything else, then let's say we have too much makeup, okay? A minimalist would say, let's declutter the things so we can create time and space for what we need, and it takes up too much space. I would say, how can we be content with what we have? How do we figure that out? Let's work on that. And maybe your first couple of attempts fail. Maybe decluttering is part of that strategy. But what I think, asking yourself, okay, how do we be content with what we have? If we start asking that question first, I think is doing it the reverse of minimalism, where minimalism says declutter first, ask about contentment later. I mean, they never really say that, but that's kind of more what it is. It's like, okay, how about we figure that out first, and let's do the hard thing of figuring out how to be happy with what we have first, and then we can declutter if we need to. Because being happy with what you have is way harder than decluttering. It really is. So asking people to do that first means doing the hard work first. And so instead of asking how much stuff can I live with or live without, how few things can I own, asking ourselves, how do I be content with this? Even this amount that I have, how can I be content with this? And in the answer, sometimes it's, I can't be content with this because it's too much. And so when we focus on contentment, if it's makeup or books or clothing, when we have one of those subjects, when we move stuff from the equation, we will learn over time how to be content with what we have, which is ultimately what minimalists want people to do, but I think have a hard time showing how to get there. So a contentment first life, I think, is going to be so challenging for a lot of people because we don't know what makes us content. And also I think for a lot of people, shopping and stuff makes us content. When those are accumulating behaviors, when it's like, okay, if we want to not accumulate, how do we be content with what we have? That is such a hard task that I think a lot of people don't know where to start. So there is more of an instant gratification with minimalism where we could say, I declutter, I'm at least halfway there, and I can see tangible results up front. Contentment is a harder thing to do, and it's a harder thing like we don't see instant results from, but I think it's ultimately much more rewarding. That's the video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I would love to hear all about them. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I would love it if you would subscribe to see more content like this, and I hope to see you again around here soon.